The mark of the beast in the Bible is very simple, and nothing else that anybody else says about the Bible or about the mark of the beast has any biblical backing. Everyone just tries to guess what the mark of the beast was with actually no verses to back it up. So we'll just get straight to the point. The mark of the beast was the law. In Exodus and Deuteronomy, whenever the law was given, it said, "Bind this upon your hand and let it be for frontlets between your eyes." It said, "Let this be for a sign upon your hand and a memorial between your eyes." But the law was a curse, and it said Jesus Christ was made a curse for them and said he redeemed them from the curse of the law. The law was never going to be the covenant of God. It was added 490 years later, I think they said, or it was 430. It was added to the covenant of circumcision because of their transgressions, because of their wickedness. Paul said, what was the law written for? He said it was written for the wicked, not for the righteous. Then Jesus Christ came, born under the law, to redeem those who were born under the law, the ministration of death, the ministration of condemnation. He was made a curse for them, removing the curse of the law, so that there would be no more strength of sin, and he came to end sin. It is the very thing that Jesus came to do. He said he came to fulfill the law, and they said he came to end sin. That is what he came to do. But in 66 AD, the zealots, because they were zealous of the law, they were called zealots, right? These leaders, and they got all of Israel together, all the unbelievers, and they called themselves zealots, and they went to fight Rome because they were zealous of the law, and they were still trying to keep the Passover and everything else in the law. They were saying that the temple would not be destroyed, that the customs of Moses would not be changed, like Jesus said, like Stephen said. They said that that wouldn't happen. They said that Jesus was not the Messiah. God wouldn't end the law, and they got everybody to fight Rome, saying God will keep us. He will not let this temple be destroyed. And millions of Jews called these zealot leaders the Messiah. The mark of the beast was a Jewish thing. Those that overcame the mark of the beast sang the song of Moses, according to Revelations chapter 14. Gentiles never had Moses. They never had the law. Jesus did not come to give them the law. He came to fulfill the law. Gentiles, having not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law. Gentiles were aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, strangers from the covenants of promise, without Christ, having no hope, and without God in the world. And they were made nigh by the blood of Christ whenever Jesus broke down the middle wall of partition that was between them, talking about the law, and taking the handwritten ordinances which were contrary to them, nailing them to the cross, taking them out of the way, making in himself one new man, so making peace. And the Gentiles were made nigh by the blood of Christ. See, whenever Jesus was on earth, the New Testament had not started yet. The Gentiles did not come in yet. Whenever Jesus was here in the flesh, he went to Israel only. He called the Gentiles dogs, said it's not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs. And then he was not sent but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator, because a testament is not of force while men live. It's only in effect after they die. Gentiles were grafted in after Jesus came and said that he was going to fulfill that law. And in Acts, they were arguing that they should put the Gentiles under circumcision and under the law. And Peter stood up and said, why are we trying to put a burden on them that not even us or our fathers could bear? So they did not give the law to the Gentiles. This is why the mark of the beast was a Jewish thing. It's why it said, any man who has wisdom, let him count the number of the beast, for it's the number of a man. Their letters back then were numbers. So anybody's name, anybody that was learned in math or anything like that, whenever you would say their name, or any word for that matter, every word would have a sum. So in 66 AD, God left the temple, so that the man of sin could come and sit in the temple. He who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way, and then that man of sin would be revealed. They could not sit in the temple of God until God left the temple. Once the glory cloud in 66 AD, it's written in history, moved off the temple, and a voice came up in the temple saying, get thee hence, because it was imminent destruction, is what they said in history. It was a bad omen. The believers fled into the wilderness, where they had a place prepared away from the face of the serpent for 1,260 days away from the face of this war. And they were nourished there in the wilderness under the glory cloud of God. Now the Jews took this law thing literally. They actually used to bind little scrolls to their hand and their forehead. They'd have a little box with a scroll in it. This is what the Bible's talking about. Whenever in Revelations chapter 10, it says the angel put 1 foot on the sea and 1 foot on the earth. One beast came up out of the sea, that's Israel, and the other beast came up out of the earth, that's the false prophet coming up out of Jerusalem. And he had a little scroll in his hand, a scroll that was big enough to eat. And John was going to write what it was, but the angel said, "Write it not, seal it up." He wasn't allowed to say what the mark of the beast was, because the beast was given power to overcome the saints. Anybody who did not believe in Jesus Christ, those 7 angels that uttered their voices were actually telling him that the law was the mark of the beast. And John wasn't allowed to write it, because they were not allowed to know beforehand what the mark of the beast was. Because anybody who worshiped that image, anybody who said the law says, the law says, the law says, making the image of the beast speak, would not be of Christ, because the very thing that he came to do was destroy the temple, was finish the law, and end sin. And in 66 AD, these zealots that were zealous of the law took over the temple. Millions of them fought the Romans, fought with the Romans, were destroyed by the Romans. And they tried to keep the law. They called themselves the Messiah. They thought that Jesus would have a kingdom on this earth and that the temple would not be destroyed. They kept the very thing that Jesus Christ came to do. They rejected everything that Christ was, and they were destroyed because of it. And the custom of the Jews back then was Jews could not spend any money except for their own currency. That's why they had the money changers in the temples. So these zealots would not allow Christians into the temple because they didn't keep the law and they didn't keep the Passover. They saw Jesus Christ as the new Passover. Like Paul said, Jesus, our Passover, which was crucified for us. He became their new Passover, and they started taking communion. And these zealots would not allow. They took over the temple. They killed 12,000 people, all the council and all the priests in Israel, and took over the temple. And they would not allow Christians in. They would not allow them to exchange their money. They would kill Christians, and they couldn't buy or sell. The reason that they sang the song of Moses was because the Jews were put under the law. But Moses saw the glory. If you read 2 Corinthians chapter 3, he calls the 10 Commandments the ministration of death and the ministration of condemnation, says that they were done away and abolished, and that veil was lifted off the people. He said back then that veil was still on their hearts in the reading of the Old Testament because they had not turned to Christ. And it said that Moses had to put a veil over his face so that the children of Israel could not steadfastly behold the glory of his countenance, which glory was to be done away. The law was to be fulfilled through Christ, and Moses saw the glory of God. He looked past the law. Those that overcame that actually saw that glory that Moses had before the law was given as a curse. So they sang the song of Moses. And how fitting it was that this last battle, Armageddon, took place because of Passover. The custom of the Jews back then for Pentecost, Passover, and the Feast of the Tabernacles, they would travel from all over the world, especially for Passover. That was the main one. If they didn't come for the other ones, they came for Passover. And they would travel all over the world, from all over the world, to descend upon Jerusalem, all of them from all over. It was their custom. It was a commandment. They came. They left everything they were doing, and they came to Jerusalem. Now, in 70 AD, at the end of this war, 3 days before Passover, the Romans got an idea. They made their final stand for the temple. They called up 10 legions of Roman soldiers, and they allowed all of Israel in. They let all of them come in, and then they built a wall around them. They blocked them off, kept them in the city of Jerusalem. And this is that last war about the abomination of desolation. But that is how Satan gathered everybody together. He was the accuser of the brethren through the law. That's what he did. And these people that rejected Christ as the new Passover, who came to fulfill the law, they rejected him and kept the law for a sign upon their hand and a memorial between their eyes. They gathered themselves together from all over the world for Passover, and God did not pass over them. He didn't. He destroyed them. Over 1 million of them died just on the day the temple was destroyed. They rejected Jesus Christ, called themselves the Messiahs, kept the law for a sign upon their hand, a memorial between their eyes, said that the temple would not be destroyed, rejected every single thing that Jesus Christ came to do. Rejected it, the whole thing. And they were killed because of Passover. Putting the blood on the posts did not help them. The Romans started this war, and Satan gathered all Israel together for Passover. And Passover was the beginning of the law. The law on the Passover, it says, that they would bind it upon their hand, Let it be for frontlets between their eyes. So that was the mark of the beast. I hope that you guys subscribe and come see. I'll be posting a video a day. At least I'm trying to post at least one video a day. So, thanks.